Radhe Radhe. Here, Sudevi, take this. Haribol. Bolo Radha Krishna Bolo.
We're just on the name of Bhaktivedanta Thakur.
Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe. What page was that? 170?
170. So Bhaktivedanta.
How's the weather?
I think we need to wait for people to realize we started a new one.
We started a new one. Haribol, Bolo Radha Krishna, Bolo Haribol. Connection's not good?
No, I think it's okay.
It's okay now?
Didi says we're back again, so...
Okay.
Please forgive us. We're trying our best.
Can't do that with Antara. There we go. Jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Is it okay? No, on your head.
Sudevi's checking. I'm on Raman, so it's not working.
I am too. Yeah, it's working.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare
How's the connection?
I can't connect myself, so Sudevi, can you check?
If you're all using the same connection, that's also not
Well,
favorable.
I can't get on, so there's no point.
Can you get on to Kishori?
Let's see.
Should be able to get on to Kishori.
It's amazing, it's loading. Seems good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't cut out. It seems okay. It's great. It's good at the moment.
Jai. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tiralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Manchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Giring Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Ninatarinam. First of all, I offer my Dandavat Pranam thousands of times at the dust of the lotus feet of our beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishna Vishnupad astottara Shri Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaja. And the same thousands of Dandavat Pranam at the dust of the lotus feet of Nitya Lila Pravishna Vishnupad astottara Shri Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and to our Rupanuga Gauriya Guru Varga, and also to all Vaishnavas past, present and future, including all of those who are present with us today, very patiently enduring all the internet difficulties. I offer my Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranams.
Okay.
Are you going to connect to this thing?
No. I'm just checking something very quickly, which is important. Okay.
A huge storm is on its way, so...
Which will last for 10 days.
So Subi tells us.
Yes, so we're just waiting for Krishna to lift Govardhan and we will all enter underneath. Today, for us here in Vrindavan, is the anniversary of the disappearance of Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur. Here it says Prabodhananda Saraswati Goswami. Prabodhananda Saraswati is the uncle of Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami of Radharaman fame. Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami manifested Radharaman from his own heart. So Prabodhananda Saraswati is the uncle of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Gopal Bhatta Goswami's father is Trimala Bhatta, and another brother was Venkata Bhatta. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, on his tour through South India, during the 4 months of Chaturmas, which just began yesterday, stayed in Sri Rangam at the home of these wonderful brothers and their nephew, or son, Gopal Bhatta. So, traditionally, because there weren't normal roads in the past, people had to travel long distances through the jungles. We've heard of Sanatan Goswami, how he went through the jungles. We heard of Raghunath Das Goswami, how he went through the jungles. Even Mahaprabhu going through the jungles. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami coming through the jungles. So many would travel through jungle pathways. But during the rainy season, which is Chaturmas generally, there's a lot of rain at that time, the rivers and lakes become flooded and it's very difficult to travel. So at that time, any sadhu, sannyasis are not supposed to remain in any fixed residence. This is part of the rules of sannyas. Even our Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he said that Narada Muni was cursed by Daksha Prajapati. One of the founding fathers of humanity, Daksha Prajapati. Why? Because Narada Muni was always preaching the truth. That this material world is a place of misery, that it is full of illusion, and that the highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all, that is, Bhagavat Dharma, to develop pure love and affection for Krishna, and to not become attached to anything of this material world. So that is the duty of all sannyasis, and those who are also brahmacharis, those who are always fixed within the conception of Krishna, Parabrahma Shri Krishna. This means brahmachari. This is their duty and function. Especially when one has accepted the renounced order, from that moment, they used to be granted a death certificate. That you are no longer alive to this world, you are dead to this world, you are only alive to bhakti. So they had no more normal rights, they could not own anything, and they were not supposed to remain in any place very long. They would move from place to place to place, traveling and preaching the absolute truth. And Daksha Prajapati cursed Narada Muni because he converted the first 10,000 sons of Narada Muni into brahmacharis. But Daksha Prajapati's function and seva was to populate the earth. This is the meaning of Prajapati. He's supposed to make progeny. He's a progenitor. So these 10,000 sons decided, we are not going to get married and we are not going to have children. Well, this made a very strong problem for Daksha Prajapati, who could no longer do his seva. So he made another 10,000 sons. And these 10,000 sons, Narada Muni also came to them, and he told them, why don't you follow the example of your older brothers? Look at how happy they are, look at how peaceful they are. You should follow them. Beside the fact that the younger, much younger brothers should look up to their older brothers and try to follow that example. So Narada Muni preached to them as well and converted all of them into brahmacharis. Daksha Prajapati became very angry and cursed Narada Muni that because you're making so much trouble, I curse that you will not be able to remain in any place longer than it takes to milk a cow. And Narada Muni was happy with that. Sure, okay, no problem. But it doesn't take long to milk a cow, so he has to keep moving from one place to the next to the next. Narada Muni bajai bina radhika ramana name. Because of this curse, Narada Muni had to keep moving and glorifying Radharaman everywhere. playing on his veena and glorifying Radharaman. So he was happy that he was not able to remain in any one place too long, because what usually happens when one remains in any one place for too long, they start to become attached. You become attached to the things that you accumulate, you become attached to the people around you. Even that person that you might not have previously found attractive, you'll start to find very attractive. It's the nature of this world. So it's easy to become attached to the things and persons around you. And with those attachments, you become bound in this world. So, where is Narada Muni not affected? Only in the Dham. By that curse, it could not enter Dwarka. So Narada Muni was able to reside in Dwarka, but he was able to witness the pastimes of Krishna, by which there was always purification. Although Narada Muni is above and beyond all material iniquity, still, there, he was able to remain in Dwarka. But also during the rainy season, it's very difficult to travel. So there's a special prescription made. During this Chaturmasya Vrat, or during this rainy season, one should voluntarily accept some extra discipline, some extra austerity, tapasya. Srila Prabhupada writes in Srimad Bhagavatam purports that without tapasya, without austerity, there's no means or no meaning to develop into a progression in bhakti. Because it means we're only seeking our own sense gratification, our own sense enjoyment. So in order to curb the appetite for material enjoyment during these 4 months when one could not travel, then more tapasya, austerity or sacrifice was imposed upon oneself so that they would not become too comfortable. It's easy to become comfortable. Oh, I have a nice situation, a nice bed, nice fan or any servant fanning me, good food coming. Then it's easy to become the enjoyer. But for sannyasis and brahmacharis especially, but also for anyone who's attempting or endeavoring to progress on the path of bhakti, this can become a detriment. Janma Ishwarya Shruta Shri. So this kind of relaxed, comfortable material enjoyment can become detrimental. Ati ahara, prayasha, over-consuming ati ahara. Prayasha means over-endeavoring. But also when you're situated in those situations, you may be with those who are also mixing with others who are lusty or who are absorbed in material activities. So prajalpa can come. Even our Gurudev didn't like to remain in any one place more than 5 days. He said something to the effect that after 1 week, then everyone just starts coming with the material problems. My husband this, my wife this, my child this, my money problem, this problem, that problem. But he has come only to help us with Krishna Bhakti. So, Prajalpa becomes more prominent at that time. Niyamagraha, Janasangas, associating with worldly minded persons. Lolyam, because of association, then material greed can also manifest. We know that divine association is the source or the cause of greed manifesting in our heart for Krishna Bhakti. But asatsang or mundane association is the cause of greed awakening in our hearts for material things or asats things. Our Param Gurudev Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he spoke to Achyutananda Swami when Achyutananda Swami came to meet him, and I think it was 1967. At that time, he told him, if you vibrate material sounds, you will get material results, material things. And if you vibrate Vaikuntha sounds, then you will get Vaikuntha results. So speaking prajalpa, associating with those who are attached to and greedy for material things, what is the result? Naturally that will manifest in our hearts. So therefore it is Shadvir Bhaktir Vinashyati. It is destructive for our forward progress on the path of bhakti. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained for 4 months in the home of Trimala Bhatta, Vyankat Bhatta, Prabhurananda Saraswati, Gopal Bhatta. Gopal Bhatta at that time was only 7 years old. And during that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shared so many beautiful discussions with these Sri Sampradaya Acharyas. They were in charge of the temple of Sri Rangam, so they are not lightweights. They were on the top of the rung of knowledgeable personalities. They were well versed in all Shastra. And they were very devoted to Sri Ranganath. Very beautiful deity of Vishnu inside. If you've been there, I did when I was quite young. I was about 10 years old at the time when my father brought me. So we had darshan of Ranganath, Sri Rangaji. So they were serving, they were the main sevaks, and they're in charge of the Sri Rangam temple in South India. So Mahaprabhu stayed with them, and they had so many beautiful and deep conversations. And Mahaprabhu is glorifying the prem of the Brajbasis, and they were glorifying Vaikuntha prem, the prem of Lakshmi Devi, because they are in the Sri Sampradaya. So Sri was everything, meaning Lakshmi Devi. And Mahaprabhu is coming through the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. So Brahma is the first created being within this universe, but how was he initiated? By Krishna's flute song. Which one? Kama Bij. Kling Shabda. Means this is the root of this prayer. Also Gopal Mantra. It is the root of this mood of loving service for Radha Krishna and Vrindavan. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took that route to come into this Sampradaya. In Brahma, Madhva, Sampradaya. And from Mahaprabhu manifested the Gaudiya aspect. So now we are known as Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Because from the land of Gauda, but also those who are followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Gaura, but especially those who are worshipping Srimati Radhika, who is Gauri. Those are Gauriyas. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada said, those who are worshippers of Vishnu, they are known as Vaisnavas. Those who are worshippers of Krishna, they are known as Karshnas. And those who are worshippers of Srimati Radhika, they are known as Gauriyas. So, Gauriya Vaishnava means, in this case, Radha Krishna. Those who are worshippers of Radha Krishna. We're Gauriyas. She is our Swamini. So, Mahaprabhu had many discussions with them. And they were giving very good arguments from all Shastra. And Mahaprabhu, of course, being the Supreme Lord, was able to run circles around them, like he did with Keshav Kashmiri and he did with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He was able to run circles around them. With Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma had a special benediction directly from Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge and learning herself, that she would dance on his tongue and he would speak everything amazingly. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was soundly defeating him in every way, he realized this must be the Lord of Saraswati, the Master of Saraswati. When he had this realization, he developed extreme humility. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed him that I am the Master of Saraswati. I am non-different from Krishna, I am non-different from Ram, and I am also Gaura. So he manifested a beautiful six-armed form that we know as Sri Shadbhuj to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. For Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, just to show him who he was. So, in the case of Prabodhananda Saraswati, Trimala Bhatta, Vyankata Bhatta, and also Chota Gopal Bhatta Goswami, little Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was engaging in these deep and beautiful conversations. And gradually, through quoting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the spotless, topmost evidence, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted the Nagapatnis. Who are the Nagapatnis? They are the wives of the Kaliya serpent. As Krishna was, I want to say dancing, as Krishna was stomping on the hoods of Kaliya in such a beautiful way that it appeared like the most magnificent dance. He was stomping on his hoods. Previously, the Nagapatnis were thinking, yes, our husband is aparadhi, he's against Krishna. If he is killed, then it's great. No problem. But then they saw that he had become humble, that he had had all of his ego and pride smashed out of him by the lotus footprints of Krishna on his head. Foot stomps. Kaliya was vomiting blood and so much poison and fire, and even the jewels from his head, which were reddish color, were falling into Jamuna. If you read Hansadutta by Srila Rupa Goswami, there you see how, and in the description, when Krishna was dancing on the heads of Kaliya and those jewels were falling off, because Kalindi is very darkish, like dark bluish Yamuna, and Kaliya's jewels were red. As these jewels were falling in, they were also glowing. So you mix the red glow plus the blue Jamuna water, very dark blue Jamuna water, what do you get? Jamuna was glowing with an amazing purplish hue. Amazing purplish hue. This is written in Sri Hansadutta. So, this pastime, when the Nagapatnis, his wives, saw that he had become humble, then they began to pray to Krishna. Now he is a soul surrendered to you. And so they petitioned Krishna, because they were devotees of Krishna, they petitioned Krishna on his behalf. Shunya amara duk Vaisnava Thakur amalage Krishne abe divena prachur. Seeing our suffering, pitiful condition in this material world, the devotee of Krishna, the Vaishnava, petitions the Lord profusely on our behalf. Vaishnavera avedane, hearing their prayers, hearing their petition, Krishna doyamoy, Krishna bestows his mercy. Eheno pamara prati havena sadoy. And by that we receive so much transcendental benefit. So, the Nagapatnis were praying to Krishna. And in their prayers they said something. How is it possible that our husband has received this greatest fortune of receiving your lotus footprints on his head? Even Lakshmi Devi herself does not have this kind of fortune. Srimad Bhagavatam tells that she is doing austerities in Belvan, Shrivan, across the Yamuna to be able to enter into Krishna's pastimes and receive this kind of mercy from you. How is it possible? What kind of great austerities, what kind of sukriti did our husband have, Kaliya, that he was able to receive the touch of your lotus feet upon his head? So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned this, and that Lakshmi Devi was doing austerity in Shrivan, the forest of Srimati Radhika, to gain her mercy, and Mahaprabhu expressed it with all evidences from Shastra. At that time, those Sri Vaishnavas, those who were worshippers of Lakshmi Narayan, Trimala Bhatta, Vyankata Bhatta, Prabhurananda Saraswati, and Gopal Bhatta, they all were convinced. And because the nature of their Atma, the nature of their soul intrinsically is that they are eternal servants of Radha and Krishna, then they were able to move forward from that perspective to the perspective of accepting Radha Krishna conception as the supreme topmost. Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajeshatanai. The topmost worshipful form of Krishna is Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radhika's Krishna. Because of this, the topmost worshipful place where their pastimes are performed is Sri Vrindavan Dham. The topmost method of worship, which is the most pleasing to Krishna, is that one where someone completely surrenders everything, mind, body, soul, everything, exclusively. That is Ramya Kachidupasana Brajaburu Vargena Yakalpita. The method of worship, the upasana that the gopis of Vrindavan undertook to please Krishna. Complete self-surrender. Even giving up all position and everything, recognition, name, anything in society. Their own lajja, their own chastity, their own shame, everything they offered at Krishna's feet. And Krishna said, I cannot repay you. So this is the highest form of worship. Which is the proof of this? Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. And what does Bhagavatam bring us to? That the highest goal, the highest attainment, the highest destination, Prema Pumarto Mohan, is Krishna Prem. What kind of Krishna Prem? In the wake of the gopis of Braj. This kind of Krishna Prem. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu convinced them. And we have seen what kind of powerful, great Vaishnavas these personalities are. For others, Mahaprabhu also gave the same evidences, but they could not change. And Mahaprabhu acknowledged, yes, of course you cannot change because your eternal position is in relationship with Sri Ram as Hanuman. And then he told also to Anupam, the younger brother of Rupa and Sanatan, that also, yes, you are an eternal servant of Sri Ram. So even though he heard about Radha and Krishna and accepted all of it as truth, theoretically, still his heart could not allow him to fully go in that direction. Theoretically, yes, it made sense. The Shastra proves it, yes, it makes sense, but my heart will not allow me to move any further. Why? Because his soul, its intrinsic, inherent nature was only meant for Sri Ram. So they will see Krishna Lila as a manifestation of Sri Ram. Does that make sense? Oh Ram, you have appeared in such a beautiful form as Krishna. Jai Ram, Jai Ram. This is what our Gurudev told some Ram Bhaktas, that you should see Krishna like this. That you should see that your Ram has appeared in this beautiful form as Krishna, but glorify him as Ram. And then he looked at me and Sudevi and said, and Ram, he is so beautiful, so charming, so attractive, so magnanimous, immediately your heart will want to run to him. So you should never address him as Ram. If you see any Murti, any Deity, any picture, you should say, "O Krishna, you have appeared in such a beautiful form as Ram. Jai Krishna, Jai Krishna." He was teaching us ekantik, one-pointed bhakti. So, those in the family of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, they were Lakshmi Narayan Bhaktas. Externally, but the nature of their soul was that they were Radha Krishna Bhaktas. So by Mahaprabhu's instruction and by his giving Shastric proof, they were able to continue on their progression toward their realization of Radha Krishna Bhakti, to serve Radha and Krishna. So this same Prabodhananda Saraswati, whose day we are observing today, he came to Sri Vrindavan Dham. And where did he stay? He stayed at Kaliyahrad, just behind where the tree is, where Krishna tightened his belt, made himself look like a wrestler, and then he jumped off of that tree into Kaliyahrad and subdued Kaliya. Just behind there, there's the Bhajan Kutir Saraswati, and there's the Bhajan Kutir of Bilva Mangal Thakur. So it is interesting because what convinced him was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking about the Nagapatni's glorification of Krishna's footprints on the head of their husband that even Lakshmi Devi could not have access to. And he is taking shelter of that place as his bhajan stali, where he has chosen to do his bhajan, in his bhajan kutir. We've also heard from our Rupanuga Guru Varga that Prabodhananda Saraswati is none other than Tunga Vidya Sakhi. Our Gurudev and our Guru Varga, coming in the line of Rupa Goswami, but especially in our Bhaktivedanta Dhara, from Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, they have very, very strongly counteracted the idea, which comes from some Babajis, that Prabodhananda Saraswati and Prakashananda Saraswati are the same person. Our Gurudev and our Guru Varga have strongly counteracted this and given all proofs to the contrary. Prakashananda Saraswati was the leader of 100,000 Mayabari sannyasis in Varanasi, in Benares. And when Mahaprabhu went there, he sat kind of near where everyone would keep their shoes, and they saw he is so beautiful. His beauty is so great and he's glowing. And they became attracted to him. And then they asked him to come and sit with them. Then Prakashananda Saraswati said, "You are a sannyasi. I recommend to you that you should do what a sannyasi should do. You should study Vedanta. Why are you just chanting the names of the Lord? You should study Vedanta. This is proper etiquette for a sannyasi." Mahaprabhu told him, "My Gurudev saw me as a fool. I'm not qualified for all of this high study of Vedanta. So I simply follow the order of my Gurudev and I take shelter of Sri Harinam Prabhu." By Mahaprabhu's dignified approach and by his beauty, they began to ask more questions. And then he began to give answers. And then they realized he is the master of Vedanta. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta vatak smatir jnanam apohanam cha vedaishta sarvairaham eva vedya vedanta krit veda videva chaham. In Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Krishna tells this. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta. I am seated within the hearts of everyone. Vatak smatir jnanam apohanam cha. And I give knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Then, Vedaishta Sarvair Aham Eva Vedya. By all of the Vedas, you can know me. Vedanta Krit Veda. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta. Videva Chaham. Videva Cha Aham. And I am the knower of the Vedas. Krishna says. So Krishna and Mahaprabhu are non-different, except Mahaprabhu has a speciality. It's Krishna inside, but covered with the bhav of Srimati Radhika. And that bhav also has its complexion, which is Gaura. So he becomes known as Gaura Anga, who has all the limbs. This golden manifestation, because of this mood of complete dedication and love and affection to Krishna. This is the color of Srimati Radhika. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi. She's Gaurangi, he is Gauranga, because he is experiencing her bhavs. Radha Bhava Dhyuti Subalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. Although he is Krishna himself, he is completely saturated, completely embraced. Radha Alingita Vigraham, the bhavs, the moods and sentiments of Srimati Radhika, and therefore he is manifesting her Kanti. Radha Bhava Dhyuti Subalitam. He's manifesting her complexion. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu convinced Prakashananda Saraswati and the 100,000 Mayavadi sannyasis, and then they accepted the path of bhakti as the supreme path. They accepted Vaishnavism and they became Pakka first-class Vaishnavas, devotees of Krishna. So this is Prakashananda Saraswati in Varanasi, Benares. That is different than Prabodhananda Saraswati, who is from Srirangam, South India. He received sannyas and became known as Saraswati, but also he was from the Bhatta family. Vyankata Bhatta, Trimala Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta, Prabodhananda.
Balabhadra added two comments that are expressing this point not too long. One from Gurudev and one from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I wondered if you wanted to share them.
Do you want me to read from there? Sure.
There's the first one from Gurudev, and then the next one is...
Is it long? No.
No, they're not, and one from Saraswati Thakur. So...
I just want to make it brighter. There we go. In the third chapter of Madhya Khanda of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur. Wait, am I reading the first one? Oh, nowadays, Gurudev first.
Yes.
Nowadays, some people say that Prabodhananda Saraswati and Kashi's Advaitavadi Prakashananda Saraswati are the same person. This is totally untrue in all aspects.
Wrong, and
Srila
wrong.
Gurudev was uncompromising in his presentation. How is it possible for the same person to be the devout Prabodhananda Saraswati first, then the impersonalist Prakashananda Saraswati? So, apparently Mahaprabhu first went to South India and converted them to Radha Krishna Vaishnavas, and they were already Sri Vaishnavas, worshippers of Lakshmi Narayan. Then how could he go from there to become a Mayavadi over there after being converted by Mahaprabhu, then again be converted by Mahaprabhu? It doesn't make sense. And then, the same Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur again. This modern doctrine is an astonishing speculation out of ignorance, which has been completely refuted by Acharyas, Shri Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Taken from the book Vrindavan Parikrama by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. So I remembered reading that from him. He was quite strong about it. It's also in the 5 essential essays. This is one of the main differences also. There's 5 main points, 5 essential essays, and this is one of the main things between those who are coming in the line of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and those who are what we would call Sahajya Babajis. Not all Babajis are bad. Gorkishoras Babaji Maharaj is good. Bhaktivedanta Thakur also, we saw him in Babaji Vesh. Jagannath Das Babaji, so many Babajis are good. And you also see in Jaiva Dharma, so many Babajis are there. So definitely not all Babajis are bad, and to lump all with the title Babaji into bad would be severe Vaishnava aparad. Gurudev once told me that I can write about the difference between good Babajis and bad Babajis, which I have not yet done, but he did tell me that I could. So then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada in the Gaudiya Bhashya Madhyakanda 337 writes, in the 3rd chapter of Madhyakanda of Chaitanya, he says, Prakashananda was a teacher of the Mayavad doctrine and a sannyasi. While discoursing on the Veda, he cuts up my divine... Okay, wait a second. Who's telling this?
It's from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Yeah, but is Saraswati Thakur saying he cuts up my divine and transcendental body into pieces? I don't accept that Bhaktisiddhanta...
It's what Mayavad doctrine does.
Right, so
Krishna
perhaps
telling.
this is Krishna telling or Mahaprabhu's mood. So it must be in reference to what Mahaprabhu is feeling. When he was first preaching this Mayavad doctrine, while discoursing on the Veda, he cuts up my divine and transcendental body into pieces. Some inexperienced people say that this Prakashananda is the same person as Prabodhananda, the younger brother of Venkatpata, who lived on the banks of the Kaveri. This error has entered into the Sahajya book named Bhaktamal, and the same erroneous belief has entered into the writings of many modern scholars also.
He said Mahaprabhu is speaking, I assume.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because when I was reading it as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada speaking about himself, it looked like he's saying my divine and transcendental
I
body.
just thought it would be good as a reference so that Gurudev and Saraswati Thakur are giving that.
See, Krishna feels that the Mayavad doctrine is like cutting him apart. It rejects Radha, who is his everything. Right? I don't know anyone but my devotees, and they do not know anyone but me, he says. Sadhava hridayatvaham. Sadhava hridayatvaham. And who loves him more than anyone? Srimati Radhika. To reject her, this is aparadha. And this actually really affects him. He feels it like arrows to his own heart, this Mayavad doctrine. Many devotees are very lax with this, associating with Mayavadis, doing kirtans with Mayavadis, those who profess that, it's all one, it's all illusion, and in the end, it really doesn't matter. And even those devotees who follow this idea of whatever anyone does doesn't really matter, this is actually kind of Mayavad. Mahaprabhu wasn't like this. All of our Guru Parampara weren't like this. Maybe those who are in the realm of Uttam, who are seeing everything with equal vision, maybe. But Mahaprabhu showed us by his own example how everything does matter and how we should behave appropriately in every circumstance. As I told you before, once one devotee who had saffron cloth said, I don't see any difference between men and women. Because someone was complaining that he always had women sitting around him, lots of ladies. And the message came to our Gurudev that he said this. And Gurudev came out and began laughing. Anyone who says this, that I don't see any difference between men and women, he said, you should know that they are fully in the clutches of the illusion. Even Mahaprabhu himself gave this example, that he was about to embrace that lady who was singing Gita Govinda so beautifully. But as a sannyasi, if he would have done that, luckily his follower Govinda stopped him and he told him, thank you, if I would have done that, I would have had to give up my life. Because this is the rule, the etiquette for sannyasis. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing perfect, proper sadachara, proper etiquette, and also teaching how those who are following in this path must be so strict, especially those who are as sannyasis and those who are as brahmacharis, not doing anything whimsically, Otherwise, we are responsible for creating a bad name for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So we must always endeavor to serve Mahaprabhu, to please Mahaprabhu. How he would like us to be, we should try to be. Not making excuses for our nonsense and trying to justify our nonsense. If we are nonsense, yes, I'm nonsense. I'm a fool. I'm so low. I require help. But don't justify the nonsense in the name of Guru Gauranga and our Guru Parampara and Bhakti itself. Then it turns the whole thing into Sahajya Mayavadism. That it's all okay, it's all one, it doesn't really matter. So, coming back to the point, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati is not Prakashananda Saraswati. Prakashananda Saraswati subsequently was converted into a first-class Vaishnava along with his 100,000 disciples, who were all Mayavadi sannyasis, by Mahaprabhu's beauty. This is one of his main ashtra. He was able to move their hearts, and then they listened to him. He was so respectful and so dignified, and then spoke so eloquently that they were completely mesmerized, and they all became the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabodhananda Saraswati, he is the family of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He came here to Vrindavan, and he is said to be a manifestation of Tunga Vidya Saki, non-different, one of the Ashta Sakis of Srimati Radhika. And yet there's something quite amazing about his writings. He has written beautiful, I wouldn't say written books, he has manifested his heart for the benefit of the world in the forms of Sri Radha Rasa Shuddhaniti, Sri Vrindavan Mahimamrita, and so many other beautiful granthas and glories of Sri Vrindavan, and the glories of transcendental beauty of Radha Rasa Shuddhaniti. So in these books, he is expressing such beautiful moods of nishtha in Srimati Radhika, of nishtha in Sri Vrindavan, and glorifying Srimati Radhika so wonderfully. So, interestingly, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, he also manifests something which appears like the mood of a maidservant, even though he is Tunga Vidya Saki in Krishna Lila. Still, this mood of service to Srimati Radhika is so great that he's also praying for that kind of mood. Of course, his fixed position is as Tunga Vidya Saki, but also her position is like that. So you can imagine she's also praying for this mood of service to Srimati Radhika, because Radhika is the original Shakti, Radha Purna Shakti, the medium by which everyone's love and affection is transmitted to Krishna. And Tunga Vidya Saki is also a manifestation of Srimati Radhika's bhav, one of her moods of love and affection for Krishna. So she's, in the words of Prabodhananda Saraswati, moving in a way of supplication, praying for the dasitva, to become the maidservant of Srimati Radhika. So Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati Pad Ki Jai. So I would like to read a little bit, but also mention a little bit about Sri Sanatan Goswami, which I was not able to mention much on yesterday. Sri Sanatan Goswami Pad, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad saw him as his Shiksha Guru, as his Guru. And Sanatan Goswami in Krishna Lila is actually Rupanuga, follower of Sri Rupa Manjari, as Lavanga Manjari, coming under her guidance. But here in this world, Sanatan Goswami came as the older brother, and Rupa Goswami saw him as his Guru. So one time there was one sannyasi in Barshana, with our group, he was speaking that Sanatan Goswami is Rupanuga. And Gurudev would have his head down like this. And when he heard him say that, he lifted his head. What did you just say? He said, Sanatan Goswami is Rupanuga. And Gurudev said, you can't say that. You can't say that. He said, but Sanatan Goswami as Lavanga Manjari is Rupa Manjari Anugatya. And Gurudev said, yes, but you are breaching etiquette in this realm, in the realm of Sadak Bhav, by saying that Sanatan Goswami is Rupanuga. Why is he breaching etiquette? So Gurudev said, say it again, but say it properly. This is how refined our Gurudev wanted us to be on every aspect and every conception of bhakti. He did not want us to take liberties like that. Why would it be inappropriate? Because Rupa Goswami, in sadhak roop, in the form of a devotee, as Rupa Goswami, sees Sanatan Goswami as his guru. So think about it in terms of us. Imagine Srila Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana. And then we come in as his disciples and grand disciples. And then we come and we sit on a seat above him, or ask him to sit on the floor and we take the seat. That would be a severe breach of etiquette, because we're the disciple or the grand disciple. So in the same way, Rupa Goswami would feel horrified. And Sanatan Goswami would also be a little bit out. Of course, he's humble, so if someone said that, he would be okay. But still, he's in the role of shiksha to Rupa Goswami within sadhak group. So Gurudev said, you cannot say that Sanatan Goswami is Rupanuga, not in this sadhak bhav. In siddha bhav, yes. So Gurudev made this very special refinement, which I found extremely refreshing. And he asked him, tell it again, but tell it properly. We cannot say it like you said it. We cannot say it like that. That Sanatan Goswami is Rupanuga. Even though in aprakat, within the maidservant form, yes, but not in this way. It was quite powerful how Gurudev addressed it. So I wanted to share that. So once upon a time, Srila Jiva Goswami, he stood up to one person who was trying to correct Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhaktivedanta Sindhu. In Bhaktivedanta Sindhu there was a verse, Bhukti Mukti Spriha Javata Pishachi. That the desire for Bhukti and Mukti, this is like a witch. Javata Pishachi. So, who read it? Vallabha. He read this, and he was senior to Rupa Goswami in so many ways, in age. And Rupa Goswami saw him as a great and wonderful personality. He also wanted to be known as a great scholar, so Rupa Goswami was like, let him have it. So he actually said, can you see any problem in here? Please feel free to let me know and I can edit it or you can edit it. So he saw this verse, Bhukti Mukti Spriha Javat Vishachi. And this Vallabha told Rupa Goswami, you have done wrong by saying that Bhukti Mukti is like a witch. We should not make offense to Bhukti and Mukti, saying that it is like a witch. Mukti means liberation, Bhukti means material enjoyment. Saying that it is like a witch. Rupa Goswami said, okay, thank you so much for revealing this to me. Subsequently to that, Jiva Goswami, the disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami, Sat Shishya, pure transcendental disciple, met with Vallabha in a private place and told him, because he could not tolerate, it was burning in his heart, that someone found fault in the words of his Gurudev and tried to correct them. And Gurudev told us in this connection, does any disciple have the right to change the words of their Gurudev or the teachings of their Gurudev? And one devotee said, well, it depends. And Gurudev cut him off and said, no. If any disciple changes the words, and this doesn't mean editing and trying to bring out the meaning of what he's saying. This means changing the concept, changing the moods, changing the teachings, the essence. He said, they are not a disciple, rather they are a demon. Gurudev said this. So, because it creates havoc, it creates doubt in Guru. When someone hears and reads something which is opposite to the conclusion that Guru has given, it will shake the faith, the foundation which is Guru Nishta. Guru Nishta is the backbone of bhakti. So Gurudev said, even if any of the Mahabhagavat tells something slightly different from your Guru, if you do not reconcile it immediately, it will put a seed of doubt in you toward your Guru. Very quickly that seed will grow into a big tree and then everything will be destroyed. Imagine a tree growing inside, your spine will break into 1,000 pieces. This is your Guru Nishtha. So Jiva Goswami could not tolerate it, so he went to Vallabha and he told him, you said that Bhukti Mukti, desire for Bhukti and Mukti, this is a witch. But actually Rupa Goswami did not say that Bhukti Mukti, that Bhukti and Mukti are like witches. He said Bhukti Mukti Spriha Javata Pishachi, that the desire for Bhukti and Mukti is like a witch. And then Vallabha realized, oh, right, you are right. Oh, I made a mistake. And then Vallabha went back to Rupa Goswami and apologized. I'm sorry, I didn't realize this. I didn't see this. In my haste, I missed this. And Rupa Goswami realized that Jiva had corrected Vallabha. So then Rupa Goswami, in front of Vallabha, said, I don't want any disciple like you here. He told to Jiva Goswami. Any disrespectful person like this. He is like my guardian. He is my senior, and he has given some instruction to me, and you have disrespected. I don't want you here. You should leave immediately. This is quite intense. So, Jiva Goswami left, following the order of his Guru Rupa Goswami, weeping and weeping, feeling, Karuna na hoile kandiya kandiya pranarara kibo. Without your mercy, I have no reason to maintain my existence. He went and took shelter in one cave near Krishna Kundin. Where is that? I remember hearing about this. Kumudvan, I believe. Kadirvan. Yes. He took shelter in one cave that also housed a crocodile. And Sanatan Goswami, when he came to that place later, I just want to say one thing. Gurudev explained regarding Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami was correct in what he did because he was showing proper etiquette. If he did not do that, if Rupa Goswami did not show proper respect to Vallabha, then he would have been criticized as teaching his disciple improper behavior. So he had to chastise his disciple. But what Jiva Goswami did was also correct. To defend the glory and the integrity of the teachings of his Gurudev. So both were correct and both had to behave appropriately and accordingly according to Vaishnava etiquettes. What Jiva Goswami did was right. And our Gurudev also had to do something like this once to his Gurudev's godbrothers, because they were speaking apasiddhanta, so he had to challenge. But in this case, Gurudev's Guru sided with him, because he could not tolerate that his own godbrothers were changing the teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. Whereas if it may have been one of his Guru's godbrothers, it might have been a different story. So anyhow, Sanatan Goswami went to that place. And Jiva Goswami had been there for quite some time, basically not taking any food, just weeping, crying, and chanting the holy name, and calling out for the mercy of Rupa. So, when Sanatan Goswami came there, everyone was glorifying him as such a great sadhu, a great Vaishnava. But then some said, but there is someone here who's even a greater, bigger sadhu than you. They're living in this cave with crocodiles. They're weeping day and night and calling out the names of Krishna. They're never taking anything for themselves. Sanatan had been looking for Jiva, but he didn't know where he was, and he realized this must be Jiva. So he went and found him and brought him. He said, come with me. So Jiva came with Sanatan, and Sanatan kept him behind at a distance. And he said to Rupa Goswami, what is the duty of Vaishnava? And he said, Rupa Goswami said, Jive Doya, to give mercy to the Jivas. And Sanatan Goswami said to Rupa, all Jivas? And he said, yes, all Jivas. And he said, what about this Jiva? Jiva Goswami. All Jivas, but not this one? When Rupa Goswami saw Jiva Goswami, Jiva was completely emaciated and weeping and begging for mercy from Rupa. At that time, Rupa completely gave him shelter, embraced him, and nursed him personally back to health, and gave him his full shelter. So Sanatan Goswami gave a very important instruction here. What is the duty of Vaishnavas? Sometimes those in the dress of Vaishnavas, or those who have come to the path of Vaishnavism, will look, oh, this person has done so many terrible things, so they should be rejected from the path of bhakti, or even be bereft of the mercy of Vaishnavas forever. They have this mood. But think about it. Gurudev said there's no sin that any of us has not committed millions of times over in our sojourn through material existence. So we can look at Hitler, or we can look at Mao Zedong, or we can look at any great, what's his name in Russia, Lenin?
Oh, it's the Trump.
Anybody. Anybody who's responsible for the deaths of millions of people, and we can think they're the most evil person that ever lived. We have also done this. we have also been them. We have been them millions of times over. Means we have manifested the most horrific demonic qualities and also the most beautiful divine qualities in our sojourn through material existence. But the fact that we're still here means we're still bound by the material energy, and we're being played upon by sattva, rajas, and tamas. We are being played upon by the three gunas. Dadihesha gunamayi mamamaya duratteya. This is Krishna's divine energy, which is extremely difficult to overcome. The three modes of material nature are playing upon us in all sorts of different ways. We are like puppets in their hands. So, I remember once there was a sannyasi who had done some terrible activities in the past. And some people, even seniors, were saying, he can never change, he will never change, he should be rejected. He should be kicked out, thrown out. And I remember the mood of some of the other devotees in that room. Their mood was, how can we say that? If they are hopeless, if there's no hope for redemption for them, then what about us? What about myself? Then I also have no hope for redemption. If great personalities like Sanatan Goswami, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami are feeling themselves lower than Jagai and Madai, lower than worms in stool, then what about me? I must really be lower than a worm in stool, more sinful than Jagai Madai. I must be really, really so. Then what hope do I have? Am I not a worthy recipient for mercy? Am I not a worthy recipient? If I am so far away, if I am so hopeless, what about me? Bhaktivedanta Thakur is saying that Asura Sakalas Pailo Charana Vinoda Takilo Boshi, even the demons are getting liberation. What about me? You're giving them your mercy, and I'm lower than them. I know, but please, what about me? Can you please also give me your mercy? So if the duty of Vaishnavas is to give mercy, then we can look and see. It doesn't mean to keep anyone in position who's doing nonsense activities. But, Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj said, someone may have thousands and millions of faults, but to push them away from the association of Vaishnavas, hundreds and thousands and millions, to reject them from the association of Vaishnavas, what other hope will they have? There's no other hope for them. He said, it is unjustifiable. They may leave on their own accord, but we cannot throw them away.
He said there's one aspect, that they are attracted to the sadhu, to sadhu sangha. He said that one virtue is so great that it is our duty to keep them here at all costs. Never mind their thousands of faults, let them have them. They may leave of their own accord, but it is our duty to keep them as long as they can possibly stay. To do otherwise is unjustifiable.
So Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaja making a very beautiful point here. So there are some personalities who have made severe Vaishnava aparad in their lifetime, as we all have, through so many lifetimes. That's why we're stuck in this world. That's why we hear from Sri Guru. That's why we come into the association of personalities like Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev, who are maidservants of Srimati Radhika eternally. And still, after being in that association, we have so many material desires because of so many millions of lifetimes of aparad, including Vaishnava aparad. So our sukritis and our sanskars are not enough. And this, even though it could be washed a bit, still we have so much of this oozing from our hearts. So we also require mercy. And other persons who have also done this, they may have tried to serve their spiritual master, but have made Vaishnava aparad, maybe knowingly or unknowingly. In which case, they really require help. They require mercy. They require it. Because the nature of their Atma, despite all of these external mundane considerations, that they may have been a Hitler, or they may have been a Mao Zedong, or they may have been a Vaishnava aparadi, still inside that jiva is an eternal servant of Krishna, And ultimately, it is not meant for anything else other than serving Krishna. And everything else is just a artificial imposition on the mind or on the soul. It is just the covering. Anadi karma pale. Since time without beginning, being bound by all these external things, but really it is not the nature of the soul. So one can and should feel compassion and pray for such personalities. You also need mercy. What will happen? You have made such intense Vaishnava aparad, maybe knowingly, maybe unknowingly, maybe thinking that you are pleasing your Gurudev, and still this has happened. So why can we not pray for such a person? This is the nature of those who are coming into, or who are Vaishnavas, to be merciful to the jivas. Jive doya Krishna nam sarva dharma sar. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he says that the essence of all religion, sarva dharma sar, is to take shelter of Krishna nam and to be merciful to the jivas. How to be merciful to the jivas? Give them the name of Krishna and also pray to Krishna for giving them mercy. They require it. How was Jiva given mercy by Rupa Goswami? Sanatan petitioned on his behalf. How was Kaliya given mercy by Krishna? He was petitioned on behalf of the Nagapatnis. How was Indra given mercy by Krishna? He was petitioned by Sudevi. How are we given mercy by Krishna? Despite our disqualifications. Sri Guru and Vaishnavas petition Krishna profusely on our behalf, even if we don't really want it, because they know it's good for us and we know it's good for us. They petition Krishna for mercy for us. So this pastime of Sanatan Goswami requesting Rupa Goswami, what about this jiva? What about this jiva? We can also see that as representing for us that what is my qualification? But Guru and Vaishnavas are petitioning on our behalf. Can we not pray for the mercy of someone who really needs it? Who needs it? Those who are transcendental associates of the Lord don't need us to pray for mercy for them. But those who might be still bound in this material world, suffering due to the results of all of their sinful activities and aparads, they need mercy. So we can petition on their behalf, and we can also try to give them the best thing that we have received, which are the beautiful teachings of our Gurudev, of our Guru Parampara, of our Guru Varga, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and especially Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Can I just read a small thing?
Yes,
that
please.
Jiva Pavana Prabhu, he's quoting Our Lady, Shamarani Didi.
Our Lady.
Our Lady. He said, Tunga Vidya is also expert at playing the mridanga and is the leader of many different groups of devotees. In spite of this, and in spite of being a Sakhi, she is said to have the mood of a Manjari.
Nice.
So I just wanted to end on that beautiful, sweet note that he added there.
Thank you. Shri Prabhupada Saraswati Pad ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Shri Sanatan Goswami Pad ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
All Vaishnavas ki jai. Krishna Kripa Shri Murti ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanande.
Huri Huri Bo. I can tell you don't want to stop.
It's not bad. I just looked up and realized that instead of a Marmite jar, there's a peanut butter jar there.
I was going to take a picture and put it up for everyone to see. Chalo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, पति पावन श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय, प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री चिदंबर गौर हरि की जय, लड्डू गोपाल की जय, राधा विनु बिहारी जी की जय, राधा रमण जी की जय, गिरिराज महाराज की जय, हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय, गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, पिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। गोविंद गाओ धर्मानवीति, गोविंद गाओ धर्मानवीति, गोविंद गाओ धर्मानवीति, गोविंद गाओ धर्मानवीति। बोलो राधे राधे राधे, जय 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 श्री राधे, राधे राधे राधे, जय 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 श्री राधे, राधे राधे राधे, जय 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 श्री राधे। श्री वृंदावन हरि लाल की जय, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, श्री राम। Thank you very much for being with us today, for bearing with our internet difficulties, and for staying with us, for giving us the opportunity to remember the beautiful teachings of our Gurudev and our Guru Varga, and for engaging us in the service which Srila Gurudev ordered us to do for the remainder of our life. So, Dandavat Pranam,
Dandavat
Hare
Pranam,
Krishna, Radhe Radhe,
Radhe Radhe.
Shri Amutamani. See you
Hare
tomorrow.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
This was our system tonight
Jai.
that held up the cameras, so you can see we're trying our best here with what we have. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Jai Shri
Radha
Radhe.
Vinu Bihari.